How you been, Eric? No, she's sick. Yeah, she's sick. Yeah, she feels like hell.
I didn't do anything, but I'm like, oh man, this is like worse yesterday. This probably have been good. Yeah, it was cool.
Yesterday.
Isaac testing. Isaac, can you hear me okay?
It's a little faint, but I can hear you. Hear me okay.
Look at the back of the card. It's like, oh,
Okay, we got you.
really
Okay.
sucks.
And I want to say it is theirs, but,
I saw it
because
this
they've been
weekend.
renting it to the
It's to keep it.
tenant
Does
that was
not
there
have a
for
tilt. There we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call that a yard sale.
Okay, looks like the first order of business is the meeting minutes from the past meeting.
Let's do a roll call first.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Commissioner Putnam,
Here.
Commissioner Romero. Here. Chairman Glass,
Here?
Commissioner Hewitt,
Here.
Vice Chairman Person Kathleen Smith. Here. Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
and alternate Commissioner Ruth Armida. Here. Yoli's absent. Okay.
Bart, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, we have a second?
Second?
Call for vote.
Roll call vote, Commissioner Putnam? Yes. Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Chairman Glass?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Ruth?
Yes.
All right, and before we move past the consent calendar, I just wanted to make a couple announcements for everybody in the audience. Before we start the meeting, we're recommending the continuance of items number 3, 4, and 5. Those applications are tied to 67 Playa Azul for a transient rental license, 108 Middle Terrace for a transient rental license, and 150 Middle Terrace for a site plan and variances. We still plan on opening the public hearing, recusing as necessary, and hearing any relevant comments from the public, limited to 3 minutes. We included some reference materials for these agenda items in the packet, but are not planning on formally presenting any of these items. We are tentatively holding a special meeting on Wednesday, December 7th, to which most of these items are going to be continued.
Get out. So
Most
fir-
of the items or all of the items?
We're recommending that the items that we continue be heard at the December 7th meeting, but ultimately it'd be up to the commission to specify the date that they want to continue the item to.
Okay. It looks like we're at item number 2. Yeah, do we need to vote to hold it all over? Continue.
So what we're gonna do is go through the agenda, and then as the items that come up that we're recommending continuance of, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody that needs to recuse can recuse. We'll take any public comment for anybody that's taken the time to show up and participate today. We'll get that on the record, and we'll consider the points that they make, then we'll close the public hearing, and make a motion to continue the item individually for each one.
Okay. So, item number 2, correct?
So before you start, I'm going to recuse myself based on proximity. I'm going to move myself to the audience in case I have a question as a concerned neighbor.
Okay.
Okay, and just to note for our commissioner, when you speak as a member of the public, just to note, you can only speak to your own interest and not that of your neighbors. So it would be limited to just speaking as a member of the public, again, limited to own interest in the application.
And I'm gonna recuse myself also, since they're my neighbor.
To clarify, Commissioner Hewer and Commissioner Kennedy have both recused due to proximity.
Okay. You want to get us started, Susanna, number 2?
Right, item number 2, the first item under general business, doesn't require a public hearing, but does require the approval of a site plan by the Planning Commission for being an expansion of an exterior wall and for being over 70 square feet. Richard Denny is the owner and applicant. The location is 371 Whitley Avenue in the low-density residential zone. It's a little difficult to tell where this addition is going to take place from the street level, so I included some renderings just to point out where the infill construction is going to go. Right now, there's a concavity to the building on the second story, and so they're going to be enclosing that, putting in bay windows, and incorporating the space into existing living space. So it's not going to be partitioned off from any other kind of interior space. Staff is recommending that the commission find it in compliance with the annual growth policy, that the commission approve the site plan, that they find it categorically exempt from CEQA, and determine the project exempt from a coastal development permit. To clarify, since the resolution is to be posted under cover, we would present that as part of the consent calendar on the next meeting's consent calendar, but we can take action today based on the findings included in the report.
Okay. Do we have any questions of staff? Before we open the public hearing? No? It doesn't get public hearing. Gotcha.
Chair, I think you can still, even though it's not a public hearing item, I think you could still just poll the audience and see if there's anyone who'd like to speak, because we didn't have a general public comment, so just to ensure there's no one in the audience for this item.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? So come forward and state your name and address. There is not, Isaac.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you.
So we just need a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve this as stated in the report.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any other discussion? For a vote?
Commissioner Putnam,
Yes.
Commissioner Romero,
Aye.
Chairman Glass,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
and alternate Commissioner Armida.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna get Eric as well. So this next item's item number 3, and I'll have to abstain from that one.
All right, Commissioner Kennedy is going to be returning from the audience. Commissioner Hewart is going to be returning from outside of the chambers, and
I'm gonna-
Chairman Glass is going to recuse for this item due to proximity.
And, oh, yep, I was just gonna put in if we can get the recusal reason on the record, if it's the same for both, if due to proximity, that'd be great.
Isaac, could you clarify that?
Yep, we just want to make note on the record, it sounds as if we have 2 commissioners that are recusing based on proximity, is that correct?
For the previous item, we had 2 commissioners recused for proximity, and for this item, Chairman Glass is also recusing for proximity.
Understood. Okay, thank you.
Staff report for number 3.
All right, so items number 3 and 4, we did hear at a previous meeting, and staff is recommending that we continue both of these transient rental applications in order to spend some more time addressing the concerns brought up at the last hearing. As I mentioned, we're going to have a special meeting on December 7th and plan on addressing these 2 continued items as well as a couple other relevant transient rental related items as well. I included the staff report from the last meeting if anybody has any follow-up questions based on that, and we're still recommending that we open the public hearing for each individual item, and that we continue until the December 7th meeting, consider any new documents proposed by staff, and once again accept public comment.
So I'm opening up the public hearing for item number 3 at 67 Playa Azul. Is there any public comment? And- Please state your name and address.
Greetings. My name is Jonna Stone. My husband Tom is here. And we have been residents in Hamilton Cove since about 1999. We started with a 1-bedroom, liked it so much, but we needed more room. We moved to a 2-bedroom, liked that so much that we bought a lot and built one of the houses. The prettiest one, actually. with the
Would you
biggest
mind
window.
stating your address, please?
I'm sorry.
Your address?
It currently is 212 Mar de Cortez,
Thank you.
Avalon, 90704.
Thank you.
All right, I'm an attorney. I have spent, since 1996, I've been a government attorney, about 20 years as a prosecutor, and the last several years I'm working in the mental health court, which is challenging, but representing conservators. Since COVID, when we were able to move here full-time, I've been able to work on WebEx, which makes my job a dream, at least not having to actually go to court. I'm telling you my background because I'm very familiar with municipal codes, zoning laws, the Coastal Commission, as well as state and federal laws. I believe and know that the Coastal Commission relies upon the City of Avalon to manage the saturation and quality of life, safety, and welfare of our community. As a matter of fact, on July the 16th, 2013, an addendum was added to the housing element, which states it is to regulate and limit the density of population to facilitate adequate provisions for community utilities, such as transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public requirements, to lessen congestion on streets, to promote the public safety, welfare, and general prosperity with the aim of preserving a wholesome, serviceable, and attractive community for all of us. My husband and I are very devoted to this community. We already volunteer, we deliver Meals on Wheels, we sign up for anything we can do to help this community. So, the reason why I'm here is because we are opposed to adding new transient rental licenses. Over 75% of the condos and homes in Hamilton Cove already have transient rental licenses. We had one and rented our condo, the 2-bedroom, as well as the 1-bedroom. However, this home that we're in, we're not sharing or renting to anybody. We can't absorb in Hamilton Cove any more renters. Hamilton Cove has virtually become a hotel. I personally believe that the quality of life has deteriorated exponentially as a result of the arrival of Vrbo and Airbnb. When renters had to go through Hamilton Cove and CIVR, we didn't have the problems that we have now because there was regulation, there was on-site attendance. People weren't running wild crazy and asking all of us, how do I get to my unit? Where is it? Where do I get the key? I'm lost. We do have people in Hamilton Cove that rent their places personally, and they meet the renters when they come. They take them to the renter, to the place. They watch and see what is going on and maintain the order of the Hamilton Cove community. As long as Hamilton Cove Realty and CIVR were regulating things as well as personal renters taking a personal attention, the quality of our life was not impacted. Now it is a madhouse. Now, because I understand the zoning laws and so forth, the characterization has fallen upon who knows who to regulate and see that the municipal codes and that the laws are upheld. Hamilton Cove Homeowners Association certainly is not the governing party. It is the City of Avalon who regulates the municipal codes. Our sheriff's department cannot run to Hamilton Cove every 10 minutes when there's a domestic violence, a disturbing the peace, a drunken public. The City of Avalon doesn't have the funds or the ability, I don't believe, to see that the laws of the City of Avalon, the state of California, or any zoning laws are upheld. We have problems, big problems, and granting more of these transient licenses is not possible. We cannot let this happen. This past season, there was an abundance of violations daily. People complained constantly, and the quality of life is greatly affected. We cannot absorb or permit even one more license to be issued in our community. Before I say goodbye, I want to read you a letter that 15 homeowners have signed. Others voiced their empathy, but were actually fearful and afraid to sign for fear of retaliation. I don't know what that even means in the city of Avalon.
Would you mind if I interject? It looks like we're having some technical issues with our timer, but we would like to please ask everybody to limit their comment to 3 minutes.
Sure.
Um,
I'd like to give you well, I can present these letters on the 15th, on 7th.
Yeah, and you're more than welcome to hand it out to the public or the commissioners, and we can include it in the next meeting as well.
That will definitely happen. But this letter is a notice of opposition. It is signed by 15 of the homeowners now. We're not complaining of anything except please no more transient licenses to be issued. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Yes, I'm George McCormick. I live at 41 Playa Azul in Hamilton Cove. I've owned a place there since 2005, and I retired 5 years ago, lived there full-time in the last 5 years. When we were not living there full-time, we did rent for 12 years. But one thing I've noticed in the last 4 years is the renting process has changed dramatically. We first began to notice lock boxes on all the doors and on doors, and then they began to proliferate. And then we realized that how many owners at Hamilton Cove were using VRBO, Airbnb, and other agencies that did not have on-island people. So that we lost all those people who oriented the renters, who met them, greeted them, told them about the rules and regulations, and responded to their questions. Many people had questions about the idiosyncrasies of each condo, and to also respond to disturbances if there were problems there. We have some guards at the gate, but they only are at the gate. They really have they're not empowered to go around and regulate the people's activities at the complex. The HOA board has tried to create rules and regulations, even put in fines for condos where they fail to follow the full rules and regulations. But the owners aren't there, and they don't have anyone else watching these people in these cases. It's all done by the internet. So when it comes to a disturbance with this group of people, and we do have disturbances, we have screaming arguments late at night. We have people boisterous parties to the wee hours. Sometimes somebody tips a golf cart over. There are things that happen out there that are not very nice, and we don't know who to call. Occasionally the police are called, but we don't have any number for the condos. I know that Avalon has a zero tolerance policy for nuisance behavior, disruptive behavior, but we haven't seen any enforcement of that in terms of revoking CUPs or telling renters they can't come back to the island if they behave like this. So there's a challenge, I think, trying to oversee this and to regulate it. So I would ask, because of the current situation, that we really need to have the municipal codes enforced that require maximum occupancy, because people are bringing in extra people all too often. And two, we need to have also posted a number and a manager, someone who's going to respond when there are questions and problems that renters have. Some just routine questions, others big problems. Okay, and I'd like to, and so that's what we need. And I don't want to see the person who just spoke. I don't think a CUP should be granted until those regulations are enforced, because Hamilton Cove is part of the city of Avalon. One last question is, what is saturation? I know that the Coastal Commission in San Diego got to an agreement recently to limit saturation to 30% of short-term renters at coastal areas of San Diego. I don't know what the saturation limit is for Hamilton Cove. I don't know that the city has even been looking at that. But I think that there should be some attempt to create a limit of saturation. I know that the people who come to vacation in Hamilton Cove are also taking a vacation from water conservation, and that's a big problem for us, and that's at least one saturation problem that the city needs to address. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Debbie Hudson. My husband Skip and I live in Hamilton Cove also. We're at 57 Gaviota. Hi, Ruth. And I just want to say I love this community so much, and we love living out there. We've lived there since 2016, and we've noticed a huge change that there are just so many more renters. I really enjoy the renters. I love having the little kids. I love the frivolity, the happiness, hearing people come in and saying, oh, is this not the most beautiful place you've ever seen? And I feel like I'm a steward out there. I don't own. I mean, it's like anybody else has the same opportunity to come in and rent. We all rented when we came. It's just the sheer numbers have gotten out of control. And there does seem to be less and less oversight. So it seems like there's a lot of bachelorette parties and just people who are, and you know, okay, tonight's the night they're coming in. It's going to get out of control. They'll all be drunk. They'll come back in the golf carts, squealing down the hill. And you just kind of anticipate it and think, oh, praise God, they're only here for 2 days. And that's not how it used to be. It didn't used to be like a countdown, like, oh, when are they leaving? So that's sort of where I'm coming from as a private resident there. I feel like the resources are being really sucked dry. I think the Wrigleys were brilliant in putting such a conservation attitude toward the island, and because there's such a finite number of residences that can be had here, it creates such a beautiful community, and it creates a place that is so unique. I think we've saturated out there, and it's gotten to the point where we're tipping now into, is this ideal? Probably not. So that's basically what I would like to say, that, yeah, the drunkenness and all of the things that we contend with also in town are problematic. I think us being just that much further out and people, I don't know what's happened to common sense. It's just not that common anymore. And so we are we're in agreement that for now, perhaps a moratorium on the rental permits. And I hesitate to say that just because I think everyone needs freedoms, but it's definitely a problem. So, and we have seen it tremendously. So anyway, thanks for your time. Bye.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Julie Glass, and I have 45 Gaviota. I've been out at Hamilton Cove for 30 years now, and wasn't planning on coming down here to the meeting, but I was watching it and I thought I needed a little bit of correction here. You do have a board member at Hamilton Cove that's here. We can also call other ones in. As far as not responding to renters, we do have a rental company. My husband and I live on the property, and we respond 24/7. I mean, and a lot of times, not just for our guests, but for owners' kids, for anytime the guards have a problem, they call our house. So there is somebody, I think some of the comments were misleading. There are some problems, as in Avalon. Avalon downtown has it way worse. You know, people unfortunately have sometimes forgotten their manners when they come over here. We see it in the store, we see it downtown, and yeah, we're gonna see it at the hotels and at Hamilton Cove. But we are there, the guards do respond. The local companies do, and I'm the first one to say, if you're one of the companies, whether it's VRBO, CIVR, they don't respond, then yeah, give the owner a warning, pull their CUP. However, I don't think it's fair to say that they aren't being responded to. And there's a couple of things I wanted to mention. And as far as the numbers, the moratorium out at Hamilton Cove, a lot of the owners that are out there and a lot of them that are here complaining are the ones that have CUPs. So when you hear the number, it's a little misleading. Yes, they live there full time, they're not using it, but maybe if they turned in their CUPs, other people could have them. So it sounds more like there's so many renters out there than there actually is. And from this time on, after Jazz Festival, there's nobody out there. I mean, things aren't renting, so it's just summer, and we follow the same problems as Avalon does. Hamilton Cove was built to be a second home resident property, so it wasn't meant for full-time rent people that live there, full-time owners to use it. It was always meant as a second house community. And would it be any worse than having all of the owners out at Hamilton? No. I mean, honestly, in the summertime, you can go to the pool, there's nobody there. Some days, it's crazy, and there's, people from town there, there's kids there, there's everything. But that's the real world. People are paying a lot of money to be able to use their place, whether they use it for themselves, they rent it out. Some people need to do that just to keep their properties. But we are very blessed to live in Hamilton Cove. And it's not as bad as it's being portrayed, the rental issue. And I happen to know that a lot of the CUPs people have, it comes across as a higher number. Simply because, a lot of the people here still have their CUPs. Rented, came out here, and so it is misleading. But as somebody that owns a rental agency, we do respond. And a lot of times I'll respond to, when the guards have problems, I'll respond, whether it's our unit or not. Simply yes, Susanna. I'm done. So if you have any questions, I happen to know a guy on the board. You might want to talk to him too. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get just one moment response? Because I think it is quite true that Bart Glass does.
We're not even voting on this
I
tonight?
understand that, but they do respond, but 40% of
I'm sorry,
VRBO
you've already spoken, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Is there anybody else before I close the public hearing?
This is specifically for item number 3, 67 Playa Azul.
Please state your name and address.
Kate Rudden, 95 Playa Azul. First of all, as I said in the last Planning Commission meeting, Bart and Julie do a great job. They also have the least amount of rentals in Hamilton Cove. What we're addressing and trying to solve is the lack of enforcement of the municipal code as it relates to the transient rental permits. When you are awarded a transient rental permit, you're not supposed to overcrowd your unit. You're supposed to pay your TOT. There are a number of things involved with that. So if the city isn't enforcing the code attached to the transient rental, if the owners aren't able to control the behavior of the renters, and the renters don't want to follow the rules attached to staying in Hamilton Cove, we have an issue. So this is not blaming anybody. What we're saying is the increase in rentals has been exorbitant. We're over 21,000 visitors a year. We're not saying we don't agree with rentals. What we're asking is for enforcement. Enforcement of the rules that the City of Avalon has passed attached to the transient rental permits. We're asking for help. So this is not against Julie. This is not against any other rental company. We're simply overwhelmed, as is the city. So the question is, if we're unable to enforce the laws, these are laws, if we're unable to control the behavior, does it make sense to add more and then try and solve it? We're asking for a pause. We're asking for your help for solutions. Thursday through Tuesday, it used to be the case. It's year-round. We don't have a lot of people right now. That's true. But when people are here, it's out of control. We are in a circular circumference cone out there. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, if there's a disturbance, I can't tell where it's coming from to even be able to call the guard to say, it's this unit in this building, you have a domestic violence situation. It's near impossible to determine that. So we're asking for your help in getting the resources, code enforcement, people to help maintain a sense of welfare and safety. So again, I applaud everybody for trying to solve the problem, but it's not enough, and we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? We'll close the public hearing. Any discussion?
I'd make a motion
to
continue this hearing to the 7th.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
that.
And just a note of clarification for the motion maker. So Eric, that motion would be to continue this to the special meeting of December 7th and leave the public hearing open as part of that continuance. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great.
We'll take a vote. Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
Aye.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Yes?
Vice Chairperson Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Kennedy?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Ruth?
Yes.
All right, Chairman Glass has returned. Before we move on to item number 4, do any other commissioners need to recuse?
Okay, so we're just going to open the public hearing and then continue, okay? Open the public hearing, item number 4 of 108 Middle Terrace. Anyone wish to speak for or against this matter? No one? Then we'll continue this public hearing at the December 7th meeting.
If somebody would like to make a motion, yes.
I'll make a motion to hold it over to the December 7th, and we will keep the public comment period open.
Okay. We have a second?
I'll second.
Call for
Okay.
vote.
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
Aye.
Chairman Glass?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Ruth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5 is at 150 Middle Terrace. We're going to do the same thing, I believe.
Just want to confirm we don't have any recusals for this item.
Oh, good to go. We'll open the public hearing. This is at 150 Middle Terrace. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this matters, come up, state your name and your address. Looks like same result.
So for 150 Middle Terrace, I did want to give some background on that. It looks like there's a pretty significant background and it's associated with this property. I'm not sure how many members of the commission were present through all that construction history. But unfortunately, I was not present. So I have a pretty significant amount of documentation from those recent hearings to go through before I feel comfortable giving everybody a presentation about how this affects the existing entitlement issuance. And then also getting some direction from our legal team on how to calculate floor area ratio and height limitations associated with the 4-story. So if there's any kind of precedent or anything that anybody would like to, have a meeting with me about, or any kind of direction one-on-one, I'd welcome that graciously. And I believe the applicant is in the audience. I spoke with them earlier. They're right here for any additional questions as well.
Good, we're just going to... Is that correct? This was to be continued? Yeah. Number 6, this is coastal development.
Give us some direction on that.
We have someone that would like to say something about the one we just voted on to continue. Isaac? That would be on the 150 Middle Terrace. Hey, Isaac, you there?
He just messaged me saying that he's having technical issues. Let me try to reach him.
Does anybody see a problem with
I
it?
don't see a problem in it.
Yeah, if nobody
I'm
has an
just not
issue
sure
with-
formally how to get it on the record, if we'd have to reopen the public hearing, or,
I think
Dave, did
just
you have a
ask question.
suggestion?
I don't know that we care that it's on the record.
Question?
The question can be reopposed at the
That's
next
fine.
meeting.
That's fine.
Sound good?
Come on up, Lenny,
Come
ask
on up,
away.
Lenny.
To continue this hearing. Can you kind of explain that?
Yeah, so our municipal code doesn't have any specific regulations regarding a four-story as far as calculating floor area ratio and, the threshold that would require a variance with changes in floor area for height and limit. But I did mention to the applicant, I'd love to have a meeting in follow-up, just kind of comparing those approvals and having a plan to move forward for the 7th.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Lenny.
Thanks, Lenny.
Susanna, had we notified them that we were going to continue this? Okay. Okay, we'll move on to number 6. Are we there?
Hey, item number 6 of the public hearing is a conditional use permit amendment, coastal development permit, and a site plan for the expansion of the
Jamie,
outdoor.
can you hear me?
Yes,
We can hear you.
hear you now, Isaac. You back online, Isaac? We had you for a second. I'd say continue on. Isaac's evidently not with us right now, but yeah. Say we continue on.
Go ahead.
Are we moving forward without legal's assistance, or is Isaac on the call?
We were trying to access them. I'm trying to access them by phone, and I'll just put them on if I can get them through.
Should we take a break, or what would you recommend?
If we could take a 5-minute break, see if I can get them on.
Sound okay?
Don't go too far, because if you can get through right away,
We'll stick
we'll
around
go.
right here. Let's take a 5-minute recess and we'll
Thank you.
continue on when we get a hold of legal counsel.
to formalize a patio expansion that took place during limited approval process during COVID. So they'd like to formally present it to the commission and essentially legalize the existing space that's being used for outdoor dining.
This is their property, correct?
Correct. I've included a copy of the assessor's parcel map on page 2 of the staff report that has the property boundaries. It does border the city-owned property, and that border falls about right in the middle of that informal courtyard that separates Step Beach from Antonio's. I've tried to, I know it was a little difficult to visualize, but I tried to include an aerial view of the project in relation to the property lines. Also on page 2, if that helps anybody.
I'm sorry.
There's still a significant buffer between that and the city land, it looks like. Is that correct?
Yes.
I didn't hear part of what you said. That particular red rectangular on page 2 is owned by the Island Company.
So the entire light gray line is their parcel.
Oh, okay.
The light gray, right where the planter is on the other side of the light gray line, that's where the city property starts.
Oh, okay.
And then the red is the existing expanded patio,
Okay, gotcha.
directly adjacent to the,
I'm gonna have to have you, I haven't been able to get the audio back up since we came back from recess. I'm having an issue, so we're gonna have to put on another recess, so just have to hold on a couple minutes. I gotta restart the system.
Okay, due to technical difficulties, we will recess again for 5 minutes. What if we talk louder?
He's on.
This might be one of those things where, you know, product with the lowest bidder. Get some things done before something else breaks.
Right. Okay, we're back, live and direct. Okay.
just want to confirm all audio is working and no technical difficulties.
We're looking good back there, Jamie, you hear us?
We're good.
Okay. Suzanne.
Okay, item number 6, we're recommending approval of the site plan, the issuance of a coastal development permit, and exemption from CEQA. A resolution was not included in this staff report, so it will also be coming to you as part of the consent calendar at the next meeting, including the finding required for the expansion of their liquor license, in addition to the standard set of conditions.
Okay. Eric?
I've got an easy question, I hope. When I look at it on page 2, the red square, what that shows is where the red furniture is out there right now, and they just want to formalize the existing patio seating, and there's really no change.
Right.
To what we
They
see.
want to continue what they've been doing. Okay, thank you.
So no change in design whatsoever, it's
No.
just going to stay in the exact same footprint, exactly what it looks like now.
So for some background, in order to serve alcohol on that extended part of the patio that's existing, the ABC had to confirm with the city that we had authorized the operation in that area. So that was kind of the, what prompted this application. Other than the fact that COVID,
Right.
regulations that allowed these kind of emergency temporary situations to pop up have been coming to an end. So these two things coincided, and
And the crowd rushes up. We're going to close the public hearing. No one. Discussion.
I'm inclined to make a motion to approve this. I just don't want to see it explode on us, like all of a sudden, 6 months from now, we have shade awnings, and then another month or two, we've got, 40-foot palm trees and that kind of thing. I mean, I want to approve like and like currently, you know, and if they want something different than that, then they need to develop a formal site plan and bring it to the planning commission.
That makes sense. I mean,
Information as an additional condition?
Eye on things like this, because they,
Actually, I think
Maybe
we
we'll-
should.
okay, then I will.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then I'll second that.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Yes, ma'am?
alternate Commissioner Ruth,
Yes.
And just to be clear, when the resolution comes back, we'll make sure those concerns are in the resolution that's formally adopted, and that way it'll give us a little more
Teeth.
enforcement ability.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
okay. We're moving on to number 7.
Right, item number 7 is an application for,
Sandy's back, by the way. Commissioner Putnam is back. Sorry, Susanna.
do we have any recusals for this item before I launch in again?
My office is across the street from it. Isaac?
Isaac, we have an office across the street from item number 7. Is that a?
Yes, I would recuse for a potential financial interest and impact to the commissioner's property values as a result.
You don't own the office?
I do not own the office.
Renting.
It's rented.
Renting office space, you didn't own the building.
I would, on the fly, I would recommend recusal just in the interest of being conservative, so long as we have a quorum.
Okay, I'm going to go back to my room.
All right, Chairman Glass is recusing for financial or for proximity?
Proximity.
For proximity. Vice Chairman Smith is taking over, and I'll proceed with the staff report, if everybody's ready. All right, this application is for a conditional use permit, coastal development permit, and a site plan application for the remodel of an existing restaurant, Mi Casita, which includes the construction of a rooftop deck. This is located at 111 Crescent Avenue. The owner is Island Food and Stuff LLC, represented by Juanita Casillas, who is in the audience today. The restaurant is a conditionally allowed use in the commercial zone. Staff is considering this a major expansion, which would require an amendment of the conditional use permit, as well as a site plan approval. Before I go into the site plan compliance with the zoning code, I'm aware that the applicant turned in some additional submittals at the beginning of the meeting. Yes. Did she hand that out to all the commissioners? Were they available for the public? Are they?
I didn't see that.
All right, so it looks like we have some additional submittals to consider. So at the time of this report, we were not able to complete all the findings in order to issue the conditional use permit or the site plan, but we have included those for reference. And the overall use of the site isn't changing. It is a pre-existing restaurant, as I mentioned earlier. But the project scope does have the potential to affect the intensity of the use, which is, as I mentioned, conditionally allowed. We do have the seating calculation. But have not presented any findings for that.
So I have a question before. The seating calculations in the staff report, do not match the seating calculations on this that we got. Your proposed seating says 168, and their proposed seating says 200, I can't read it without my glasses. I think it says 239. So I was just wondering which one was correct.
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which one is the current proposal. I know it's gone through some modifications, but that might be.
Yeah.
Hearing none? Okay, I'm opening the public hearing. Does anybody would like to speak?
And prior to anybody coming to the microphone, I just want to clarify, it looks like the location project on the staff report indicates 111 Crescent. Is that Crescent or Descanso?
Oh, it should be Clarissa.
Clarissa.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the APN number is correct.
Yes.
So it's 111 Clarissa?
Clarissa.
Correct. Staff error.
I'm sorry.
Okay, come to the podium. Please state your name and your address.
Cindy Cassidy, Lower Terrace Road. It's hard to make public comment because what is presented to the community is not necessarily what the site plan actually is. So I really appreciate the fact that you're considering carrying this over because until we can actually, the public can see what the site plan is and what's being presented, can't really make comment on that. In concept, I fully support any opportunity for any business owner or landowner to better their property or to provide something different, more better for the community. So I'm in favor of a project moving forward. I would just really like to know what that project actually is and what the actual scope of the project is. And I understand that that was submitted today, so having an opportunity to look at that before the next meeting. I may not be able to make a December 7th meeting, but I will certainly issue comments or concerns via message to the members ahead of time. The only item that I want to make sure goes on the record is that I would like to very, very, very strongly encourage the Planning Commission to please put a stipulation that there is no amplified music allowed on the rooftop deck. We have been, as a community, there has been a lot of discussion about amplified music in town for the last couple of years. And I'm here to tell you that amplified music in this town is causing detriment to some of the residents. To some of the residents, it doesn't bother them. To some of the residents, it makes it impossible to enjoy your evenings in this town. So I want to give credit to the City Council and to City Manager Maestros for the work that you guys have done in trying to mitigate that so that there's at least some sort of healthy balance. But with what I potentially understand the actual height of this to be and where the rooftop deck could possibly be, there is nothing on either side of that, which means that that music or any amplification would be out there to the entire residents on the terraces. And so please take into consideration a stipulation on any approval that there is no amplified music or amplification of any kind for a rooftop deck. And for the most part, even if you were to approve the project, from the bits and pieces I could get from there, I would not contest the third story, remodeling of the second story. We wouldn't contest that, but ask that you please add the amplification. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Please state your name and address.
So my name is Carolyn Balon. I'm the designer, and I'm here to represent my team, GRD, and my clients with Mi Casita. So thank you so much for that, because we're here to bring something new and fresh to the community and not like a party zone. You know, that's not what we're here for. You know, we really want just freshen things up, and then just she has an incredible view, and it'd be such a great opportunity to be able to build on that. And it's so beautiful up there, just sitting up there, just overseeing the ocean is just so peaceful and so calming. I think people will really enjoy, coming to, to the site and enjoying it with everybody else. So, like I said, we're not looking to build a party zone, and having 200 people up there at the same time. We're just trying to freshen things up and, and bring something new to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Ari Casillas. I'm representing my mom, 111 Clarissa Avenue, Mi Casita. So when you were asking about the seating, as far as I know, because when my mom took over, I helped her with all the paperwork, it's 203.
That's different than all of this, so, okay.
Oh. I'm pretty sure.
New numbers.
New numbers, yeah. Is it in this? Yeah. Okay, we haven't had a chance to look at this, so. Okay.
So with that booklet too, with what Sydney was saying, how would we make that public? Because I understand her concern, I just don't know how we would do that.
So I think part of hearing this item again would be a request to get a resubmittal of the existing plan set that's been included in the staff report. And if the architect could stamp it post-date of this meeting, that'd be helpful, just to know that it's the final set of plans, the most current that we're looking to review. And then as far as the design renderings, you're more than welcome to, were physical copies provided to the commission?
Could this be up here for people to come look at the city?
So you're more than welcome to bring printed copies for the public, or you can email a PDF version to staff and we can put it up on the monitor or put it in the December 7th or whatever meeting this gets continued to. That agenda packet materials as well.
And then with the stipulation for amplified music, I'm glad she brought that up because I don't think we ever really thought about it. We were never thinking of putting like intense music up there. I think we were more just thinking of the scenery and how beautiful it is up there. We do have the third floor already, but only we get to enjoy it because it's just this little piece, and that's why we thought of expanding it. It's really pretty out there. You get to see the whole bay. Yeah, if you guys have any other questions, we'll be right here.
I included some questions that I had as part of previous correspondence with the applicant. If I'd really urge the commissioners, if there's any kind of clarification that you would like, or any comment that you have on a particular development standard or design feature, to give the applicant as much direction as possible while they're kind of formalizing their plan submittal.
Have you had the opportunity to share with them the conditional use permits that currently exist on the parcel? So going back some time, and this may help clarify kind of where my head is with this. When Mi Casita was originally developed, when Moises and Estella built that place, it was considered a mixed-use property. It had a residential component up top. Is that going to stay? Is there going to be any more residential use there at all? Okay, so you're getting rid of the housing unit there that's currently on property.
There is no housing unit on the property. I think that might have been when Estella and Moises had it, but then from my understanding, the regulations changed and we were told that nobody could live in the property. So it was, since we have owned it, it has not been a residential.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what we were told.
Okay.
Yeah, before the owners used to live there.
Right.
Yeah,
And can you confirm, or could you continue speaking on the original issuance of the conditional use permit?
Well, originally it was a housing unit originally, And when they originally built the restaurant, part of the condition was that they would maintain a housing unit within the parcel. That's how they day one got the approval to build Mi Casitas. Let's call it Mi Casitas 1, Mi Casitas 2, and now Mi Casitas 3. Is that fair? So we take the names of the folks that are involved in it. So when it was first developed, it had to encompass a housing unit because it was displacing housing at the time. Now I understand the housing isn't there, which is kind of an interesting, way of working something that may be required out of the mix, but it had a housing unit as part of the original entitlement that the property was given when it was first developed. That's one of my concerns. Second concern is height, and I'm seeing two different height elevations, and I saw a set of plans that you were delivering to staff. I want to remind you that there is a height limit on how high any structure can be. And currently, the one that's on the 8.5 by 11 piece of, or 8.5 by 14 piece of paper we have here is over that height limit.
Was that the plan set included in the staff report materials or the
Correct.
additional?
Correct, 31 feet. And so, anyway, regardless.
Well,
So those are the two concerns, and the third concern I would have would be amplified music on the deck, which the members of the audience have also brought up. So those are, of what I've seen so far, those are my only three concerns. And I love your restaurant, and I love to see it move forward and do your thing. But we need to make sure that we dot the i's and cross the t's and make sure that all of this paper trail happens.
So we should get a motion to continue this and so that we can study this more and get some of those things clarified. Is that true? Is that what we're?
Do you have a specific date you want to continue to, or a
Oh,
non-specific date? To clarify, we would renotice if there was a non-specific date.
I would recommend that we renotice, because we just don't know. I mean, there was new information passed out tonight to all the members, and I think there's issues, and rather than guess which day, we're fine renoticing, so
Okay.
we'll get it on your agenda once we have a fully submitted plan.
So just to a later date?
Just continue.
Okay. So can I get a motion?
I will make a motion to
Hang
continue
on
this
one
item.
second, Isaac is.
Yep, I would just reiterate what David said. So I think because it will be renoticed, the commission's provided direction, and so there's no formal action that we need via motion because it will be renoticed as a new public hearing once staff and the applicant has been able to connect on some of those items raised during the public hearing this evening.
Well, was there any other discussion by any of the remaining 4 commissioners before we consider the motion?
Any questions I have, I think I'll wait till the next meeting.
Is the public hearing's not closed yet, right?
It is not.
It is not.
So, I just want to make sure that we have like guidance of what to bring you guys for whenever this next meeting would be. So I know we're talking height, noise, what else can we bring up for the next meeting?
So some of the items that staff has requested are hours of operation, what liquor license is existing, and if you plan to expand that or change the liquor license. The existing utilization of the rooftop. I know you mentioned that your family, enjoys it informally, but what the occupancy is up there, what the existing square footage is of covered space versus uncovered space. And then we'd like to request elevation plans. I know a lot of that was handed out at the beginning of the meeting, and I don't have a copy. But basically design details. We'd definitely like to clarify the change in seating. And then one of the most important questions that I had was regarding the square footages. So some operational questions and some structural questions that would be addressed just by a more detailed plan submittal.
Sorry, just for clarification, if you clarify the number of increase of seating, if you can also put in whether or not that has any further mitigation to housing requirements, because it is new build on top. So if it's an expansion of the restaurant, does that trigger additional housing requirements? Just to clarify it, it's not a bother to me, but just so you clarify, as it is, the rooftop deck and the additional seats would be new addition, new business. Does that matter?
I will make a note to include the inclusionary housing ordinance and the project's compliance with that as well.
Thank you, Cindy.
And is there water?
I was just going to bring that up. The change in seats is directly related to the occupancy. I know Edison has been meeting with the fire department in order to determine what that change is going to be and how that relates to Edison's formula. I know residential intensity of use is a little bit easier to measure, although the city and Edison don't measure that the same way. But commercial projects are always a little bit more difficult to measure intensity by. So I'm not 100% sure if they're going to consider this an expansion or not, because I'm not 100% familiar with Edison's criteria for that.
And hold it over to another time at staff and applicants choosing to bring that before the commission.
I don't know that we have to keep, since we're gonna renotice it anyway.
Then you don't need to keep it open.
Right.
Okay, so eliminate that part.
Thank you.
We'll hold it over.
Should I close it?
You can close the public hearing.
You'd have to continue to a specific date in order to keep it open. But since we're not having a specific date, we have to close it.
Okay, close the public hearing. And then, your motion, did everybody hear it? Does he need to say it again?
Let's
I
hope.
don't think do we even need a motion?
We don't need a motion.
Oh, we don't need a motion, okay.
You don't?
We're good. We'll get it back on your agenda. Renotice.
Okay,
No action taken.
no action
No
taken.
action
See ya.
Okay,
Good luck.
go get Bart.
Bye, Cindy. Bye, Michael. Good night. This one? Okay.
No action taken. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Isaac, I'm back. Item number 8.
I was just making sure everybody was back.
Does anybody need to recuse themselves from item number 8? I don't believe
I
so.
don't believe we'll need any more recusals for the last 3 items, as they're mostly policy related and not tied to a specific project site. Item number 8 is a zoning ordinance amendment that came from staff, particularly me, seeking guidance on rounding for fractional densities. I included some charts and examples that show for each zone what the square footage relates to how that relates to the units allowed and how that fractionally increases. So whether or not we procedurally round down, round at a certain point, or round up makes a pretty big difference for the amount of units allowed on a parcel. So before moving forward, that was something that I wanted to make sure I had your direction on and that I was doing in a way that aligns with the goals of the commission. So specifically, we would be amending the definition of density in the Avalon Municipal Code zoning section to include the procedure for how to resolve fractional results while calculating density.
Well, does anybody else wish to speak on this here?
Well, yeah, it concerns me, it said that the intent of this ordinance is to be universally applicable to all zones. Well, we got low, medium, high density zones, and the formula changes from zone to zone, so we're gonna make it universally, what are we calling the one zone then?
So I'd recommend to have a standard procedure for rounding densities in all of the residential zones, but if
We have 3 cities that kind of round up if it's 50% or 3/4, they round up. And I have 4 cities that can always round down no matter what. And I personally think that we shouldn't round up unless it's at least 75%. That's just my opinion, but we can.
No, that was my, nexus for bringing this to you guys. I want to get your direction, and I want to formalize it in the code, so anybody.
And I don't think it matters the density I think it.
What was that?
I don't think it matters the density, so I think it just should be not rounded up automatically.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, okay.
To the point of, like, the 50%, I'd be more likely for the 3/4 to the 75%, before you round up. At half, it's a lot more on one lot.
Yeah.
And we saw that on the deal we did over there. It's a lot more on one lot. I agree with you, Kath, on that the 75%, 3/4, 75%, then you could round up, but other than that, you'd round down, huh?
I would agree.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Kane, I just want to make sure procedurally we're following. Technically, have we opened the public hearing?
No.
No.
Called. I know, Isaac, as we sit here in the room, pretty much everybody vacated the room, I get it, but procedurally, we can just open the public hearing.
And that's
I thought we were just discussing amongst ourselves still, so sorry.
That's all right.
Okay,
I don't know if I recommend it's exempt from secret.
let's open the public hearing. I don't see anyone coming forward. Procedurally, let's close the public hearing. Discussion.
Okay. I don't know if this is part of my presentation or the discussion or where we're at. But, so just to clarify, this came up in one of the reports that I was getting ready for this meeting on 150 Middle Terrace. That's a duplex, and when I was trying to see if it would affect their density at all, I wasn't sure if it involved a new unit during the beginning of the project. The density came out to 1.1, and it's currently a duplex. So that would be an illegal unit.
As it sits now.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know if that helps with the scale for you guys to visualize it a little more. I do have the increments. So right now in low density residential, if we decided to take it at that 3/4 point, let's just say has to be at least 1.7. So in order for somebody to have a duplex in low density residential, their lot would have to be at least 7,000 square feet. In medium density residential, if we're rounding at 1.7, their lot would have to be at least 3,700 square feet.
Are you referring to another specific project, or just in general?
Just in general.
In general.
Yeah, I just want to make sure Isaac was concerned we're not referencing the prior project
No,
anymore.
no. And then in HDR, if we're rounding up at 1.7, their lot would have to be 1,851 square feet.
I've got a question. That's for generally single, well, how does that apply to ADUs or the other, that doesn't apply to grandmother flats or?
So ADUs are technically considered accessory structures under state code, so they don't contribute to unit counts in density calculations at all.
Okay, so that's just for standard homes, but then if it's the other two kinds of homes, those don't count?
Correct,
In the
accessory dwelling
density.
units do
Okay.
not contribute to density, but any kind of, not all units qualify as an accessory dwelling unit,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
yeah.
A lot of multifamily structures, the multifamily ADU regulations are a lot more restrictive than the single family, which it has to be converted from non-livable covered space within an existing multifamily
Yeah.
structure. So that probably is not
Now,
going to.
what's the current one? Because 7,000 feet, to have to get to that, to have more than one unit on it.
Right now,
is a
there
lot
is
of
zero
land.
precedence for rounding at all.
Oh, okay, so it's just,
So I'm just looking to create a precedence. For
yeah,
me.
I'm thinking,
I'm not sure what's been done in the past, if they've done
In
round
the n-
down, round up, round at a certain
yeah, I'm
point.
kind of thinking in the northwest part of the city, up on the hills. I think the density the existing density is quite a bit higher than 2 homes for 7,000 square feet. It
So just to
might be
clarify, I'm not
almost
proposing
double
to
that.
change any of the allowed densities at all.
Right, and I'm
It's
wondering
still-
if that's how, but I don't know if that's a historic holdover before the zoning that we have now is, or if, yeah, that's probably what it is. I think that density in many of our zones are much higher than what the zoning ordinance allows, with or without rounding.
Agreed, I think we have a lot of non-conforming situations here.
So this just
and
clarifies
as we've gone-
one thing going forward, and then if we wanted to change density, that would be a different issue.
Correct.
Okay,
This is more of a
thank you.
procedural clarification, and then if we wanted to
I like
increase
that,
or
yeah.
decrease densities by zones, we could look at that in the future.
Yeah, and to me, it would be nice just to have a point, not whatever that is, and then we can move forward.
It makes a big difference for me
Yeah.
on a staff level determining, its compliance with the development standards, because the dwelling units and density are related to acreage, and as you know here, none of our lots are even close to an acre.
Well,
So-
here, I'll add one more goofy question then. Do you define an acre as 43,000 whatever?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Some cities define it as 40,000.
Oh,
Because, yeah,
oh, okay. Well,
because you can in your zoning ordinance, and it just made it easier.
I guess
So-
my
But, okay,
biggest point
thank
would
you.
be small changes in the acreage, which
Well,
are
an acre should be an
large
acre,
changes in square footage contribute to the units allowed.
Thank you.
For sure.
More discussion? Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I'd go at 75% and then you can round up. Before that, it's down. That's just,
So,
I like that conceptually, but I also recognize that the city is currently going through a recruitment process to hire a director for this department, and I would like to get their input. I mean, they've done this in other places before, right? I know you haven't. You've identified a problem. This is a problem. It's a problem for you. You sit there and calculate it, right? So I think we've identified a problem, and I think we have a direction we'd like to go, but I wouldn't mind the input of who the future director might be of this department to kind of weigh in on it. We don't know when that'll be, but is this critical between now and then to codify an ordinance that can be changed later?
I guess.
Is it worth spending the money on now and then do it again later?
existing staff would very much appreciate direction on how to calculate this moving forward in order to apply. to
What if
applications
we
that come
said
in.
we'd be much more likely to vote in favor of something if it was at 1.75% than if you're bringing in stuff in lower for now?
Yeah.
I'm fine with whatever direction you
Yeah,
guys want to
I'm
go.
just
as
saying,
long as I
without
know.
us passing anything,
Yeah.
I'm telling
Yeah.
you, if you get to that 75%, yeah, I would say, let's go.
But
And
always give us,
then we could
always give
wait.
us the numbers.
Of course.
So we
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
Does that sound fair? And at least it gives you some place to start. It's like, hey, this is 50. I know they've already said they're probably not gonna pass this. Or you just put it in front of us and we put a thumbs up or thumbs down on it, correct?
Except I think a lot of this will be administrative, so they wouldn't necessarily
gotcha.
come to us.
Yeah, I just would like to know if I should be requiring density variances for projects.
Yeah, I don't
or-
think it's, I think it's just the line in the sand. That's not a big policy change. And a director is
Correct,
just
it's
going to
not
say,
a big
kind of go
policy.
through the same motion.
Not
So,
affecting density, it's just procedural.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to give direction or whatever it takes to do the rounding at 75 as the cutoff, or however that would be phrased to
So-
be, the round up would occur at 7.75.
So you'd be adopting resolution number 2245 with Exhibit B, proposing,
Changing it to
proposing .75, unless otherwise required by state law. There are some instances with affordable housing that we are required to round up.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion before we vote?
You good?
Okay.
Commissioner Putnam?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
I honestly felt like I needed more clarity on that before I voted. Just because I'm new here and like the whole, if I could just talk normal, it just feels like a lot of, big words that I really am just trying to capture it all, and I'm just, maybe I should have studied this a little bit more, so I'm not really sure in what direction to vote, to be honest.
You can abstain.
You want to abstain?
I'll abstain from the vote.
Makes sense.
Chairman Glass?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Ruth?
Yes.
And just to be clear, this is a recommendation to council, so it has to go to council anyway for their approval.
Gotcha.
And we've attached the ADU update as Exhibit A to resolution.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Or do we need to open the public hearing first?
I think we can
Question to
ask
staff is
questions
fine.
of staff prior.
Does the California law that we are supposed, if I can understand this correctly, we're just implementing the California law into our municipal code, is that true?
Correct, so we have an existing ADU ordinance. I think the last time that the state released changes to the model ordinance was in 2019. And basically how it works is the state passes a model ordinance. Cities could either adopt their own ordinance into their municipal code and, tweak it to make it fit their jurisdiction. And if they don't do this by a certain date, then the general standards from the state ordinance apply. And cities don't have as much regulatory power. So our proposed ordinance is included as the exhibit, if you wanted to review that or have any questions.
So the side and rear setbacks, is it true that the California law has a 4-foot, but ours says a 3-foot?
Yes. So we're allowed to be less restrictive, not more restrictive, and our minimum in HDR, which is probably, I want to be more restrictive and say, less restrictive, and say, no, if you want an ADU up to 2,000 square feet, that's fine, and that's what they would put in their ordinance. But it creates the restriction that nobody could go lower than that. So a city couldn't go to an applicant and say, no, our maximum size for an ADU is 500 square feet. So the state sets minimum guidelines for cities, and then cities could be more flexible than that, but they couldn't.
Because knowing what our setbacks are, they're not for, and
Yes.
so forth.
It would contradict our existing code and.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to know why, in the last meeting, and I have to use the example of the corridor of Catalina and Descanso.
I don't think we can specifically reference.
Okay, well, it's something like that, then why can you not mention ADU. We approved a duplex with a set of plans that clearly showed a third unit. And you had said, we can't discuss that. I get it that we can't vote on it, but that's like, really? I mean, you say it's a duplex and you can see that there's a third unit? And plus there's all these ways to get around it, the non-conforming. And so what are we gonna use? Because it seems to be a convenient way to get something approved, because you get down to this last sentence on this last page that you could get around all of these things with a conditional use permit. So how do you do that? Because somebody's bound to come up with a way to get more units for less square footage.
So I'm not sure if I completely understood the question, but let me see if I can answer the majority of your concerns.
Okay.
ADUs cannot be a discretionary item, so they can't have any effect on the approval of any other project proposal. They can be incorporated as part of a proposed residence. It doesn't have to be a constructed residence, so people can submit at the same time, but the state also does require us to permit everything separately in order to track how many ADUs are being permitted in California, the success rate, and a lot of that has not changed. Our existing ADU code matches the state regulations that were in place at the we're charging and we're going to be generating based on that ADU. And then a couple other minor administrative changes to get more units on less square footage. But that is the stance that the State of California Department of Community Development is adopting. And if we have concerns about our municipal regulations for density allowances, like we mentioned earlier, we can revise those or look at revising those. But I think this application is just specific to implementing the minor changes as brought on by those two Senate bills.
Well, yeah, but so in other words, if everything else doesn't go, and by the way, it's down from 6 months to 30 days, so there's a minimum rental period now of, 31 days. So it could be for 10 years or whatever, but, so there are some different changes, but also if you can't meet these requirements, this very last sentence says, if you can't meet any of these, the city you can go ahead and do it with a CUP. Now ministerially, I mean, so how do you get a CUP? You could just call it a CUP, because this is saying, if you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't get the setbacks, then you can get a CUP, which would therefore ride with the property forever. And so that I would think that would affect some applicants' thoughts about it if they have to do this forever. And I'm just curious, I don't know, how does that get through plan check? Because when you do plan check and you've got to do things, I don't know who we're using for plan check now either anymore. So whoever's doing the plan check, it used to be somebody out of San Diego. Do they understand, the nuances of
regulations throughout the state of California? Most planners that I know that are doing plan checks are very aware of the ADU regulations. Even private companies like Fine Line and Torrey Jones is, super familiar with these in drafting. Currently, John and I are performing plan checks for the majority of projects, so I would be the person analyzing any kind of an application to see if it fits with these objective standards. I think the point of the last sentence is, if an ADU does not fit into the definition, if a project does not fit into the definition of an ADU or a JADU, as allowed for in these regulations, they would need to get a discretionary entitlement. You know, if somebody wanted to build an ADU, new construction detached on their property line, doesn't mean that they don't need a variance. So that would still go to you guys.
So just to be clear, because I think maybe the question was if a CUP for an ADU is not administratively performed, it comes to planning if it's a CUP.
Correct. CUPs.
So there is review and there is on those.
Yeah, that was my point, so we've done that, but otherwise, you really mean the city, you guys are doing plan check? I mean structural and, you know, all the systems and everything?
Jonathan Gilbert, the building inspector, performs the building plan check.
Good, so he does it here, so he has to look at the criteria differently. I mean, I've asked this twice in a row, but does anybody know the current turning radius for legal golf carts? You know, like if you need to park and if you need to provide parking for 2 vehicles, 2 golf carts, what is the turning radius you would have to get into that area? I mean, that would change by the street or by the alleyway or whatever, or if you had, but considering that legal lengths of golf carts now are 10.5 to 11.5 feet. And so we used to have a formula because it used to, I mean, it's been a long time since we've had new construction very much, but it used to be that you
Consulted on anything that would be affecting traffic or parking, and he's the director of public works and
Yeah, I know
the
who
city
he
engineer. So he would probably have better information on how he determines compliance with our adequate streets and all of that information. As part of the planning check, I would be making sure that it conforms with all of the stipulations in the zoning code. And John would just be looking at it from a typical building permit application perspective to make sure it complies with 2019 IBC regulations.
Okay, so, but I mean, if somebody comes in here with plans and we say you've got to have parking, and then the question would be, okay, great, you've got to have parking, what do you have? And you so we that much new construction that required it, but it used to be a standard question, and it had to be answered on what is the, it was almost like a joke. I mean, but you needed to know the turning radius to get vehicles in and out. You can't say that it would fit in this space if you dropped it down from the sky. You needed to know. And that's, we haven't been asking that. And I just think there's loose ends, that things that used to be just standard comments, or trash areas, or all of that.
Okay, yeah, as part of all my staff reports, I look for compliance with the zoning code. And I always list the general standards of development that I am looking to analyze. There's nothing in the zoning code right now about turning radiuses, I can pretty confidently say. Have a feeling that might be included as part of the adequate streets requirement of Public Works. But if we have any question about that, I'd be more than happy to do a memo and maybe, you know, just present what the existing golf cart regulations are, even though those are outside of my specific section of the code. You know, I do think it's relevant to considering these projects, or, you know, we could potentially bring Bob in here to give a presentation on our current vehicle regulations, but unfortunately, I don't have a ton of background on how vehicles used to be processed, how they're processed now. But we can bring that back for consideration if you guys want to give us that
Well,
direction.
it's standard to ask you what, you know, there's various questions just to get them, to get it where. know, I mean, you don't need, I'm sure Bob Greenlaw has those numbers. I mean, Yamaha has them. Mike King can tell you the turning radius, I'm sure.
Well, sure, you can get them on Google.
Yeah,
It's
that's
clear,
it,
I mean,
yeah.
that's not the issue, and we do look at it, I mean, I know we've had plans that have come before the commission where we've looked at them. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
The one thing I want to say, we've been discussing this a little bit, we're supposed to have a public hearing, so
Right.
can I open the public hearing
Oh, God.
here, and then we'll continue on?
Yeah.
So we're going to open the public hearing. Anyone have anything to say for or against? And the rush continues. We're going to close the public hearing. That formality over with. We can continue our discussion.
All right, so I think there is a lot of follow-up that we can do, even just one-on-one on how we're processing permits, any kind of critiques on, you know, procedurally, how we're going through plan checks and everything like that. I'd be more than happy to follow up. But as far as this specific application goes, we can either recommend to adopt, you can give me direction to revise it, just so that the commission is aware, we are required to submit whatever adopted ordinance that we do prepare to the community, to the Department of Community Development of the State of California. And if they think that it is non-compliant with the generic state code, then they will punt it back to us, and we will have to either re-adopt or conform to just the general standards that they let out.
Yeah, it seems pretty clear to me what the intent of what we're doing here is, outside the more side issues. So I'd like to make a motion to recommend to City Council the adoption of an ordinance repealing and replacing Article 6 of Chapter 5 in the Avalon zoning code in compliance with the new legislation.
I will second that.
Thank you.
So, and in this case, then, we're adopting all of this, but, so how do we deal with ADUs down the line when we're not supposed to talk about them?
That's, yeah, wasn't part of my motion. We can always, I guess, ask staff to bring more information on ADUs up. I remember talking about them a couple of years ago.
Just acknowledge that they actually exist.
Yeah, I don't see that as an issue, but,
That's a California law, that's how the California state
right,
legislature wants it to
we're
be.
trying to get as many houses, but anyway, just to stay focused on what's before us. Yeah, I think it's it's been seconded, and so we're general discussion of the motion. It seems pretty clear, we're not really changing that much of our ordinance. We'll be in compliance with state law, which gives us a little bit more control than we would otherwise have.
Absolutely, I'm just asking how it comes down, because
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that I think that's outside of what my motion was.
I just want to ask, though, because we've been instructed that we are not supposed to talk about ADUs.
Right, whether we are or aren't is outside of the motion.
Well,
that
I
made.
mean, I'm sorry. If I see a set of plans that show 3 units and I'm told that's 2, I mean, pardon me, but I don't get it, you know? Wait a minute, I see it. Either I'm crazy or there's 3 units drawn someplace, but we only say it's a duplex?
As I mentioned earlier, the state classifies them as accessory structures, and that's why they do not contribute to the density count in any city within California.
I'm not talking density. I'm sorry, but you said, you know, we're not supposed to discuss these things. ADUs exist. We've got this whole new law, which makes sense, makes a lot of sense. But
But you can't refer to it.
you can't do anything, yeah. You
Don't
don't
tell
ever,
anybody.
that's the point. That's my point. I mean,
Okay, so can we get a vote then on this
Yeah.
motion?
Can't be discussed. Individual projects with ADUs cannot be subjects of public hearings and cannot be subject to discretionary review by the commission.
Okay.
The ordinance is very much part of a public hearing, and we can discuss, which is what we're doing right now.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Yeah,
Okay,
call for a
Sandy,
vote.
how do you vote?
so that I need clarification. So if I vote for this, I'm saying that from here on out, we're never going to discuss.
It's recommending to council, that's all this is. recommending adoption to council.
Well, yeah, so we're recommending to them that they never discussed one either. I think you
They're
can
gonna discuss
discuss.
the ordinance.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, we've got,
Commissioner Eric,
yes.
Commissioner Kennedy.
Yes, with the deed restriction. I know.
Alternate Commissioner Root.
No.
And I understand where Sandy's coming from the fact that I think all of us in some way, shape, or form need to discuss the ADU a little more, because I don't.
Pages of talking about ADUs, and we can't acknowledge that they exist?
No, that's not true. Okay? That's not true.
Well, okay.
Okay, item number
All right.
10.
Right, item number 10 is the annual growth policy. I have proposed 0 revisions to the annual growth policy as presented last year and formalized as the 2022 growth policy. So I am recommending approval. I'm recommending the recommendation of approval to City Council with the same scope of work as the 2022 growth policy. We've included the calendar year 2022 entitlements granted as an exhibit for your review of every project that's been approved this year, as well as the existing water allocation wait list. If you think any of that warrants any changes to the growth policy that we've been following for the last year. And if not, I've included it as an attachment.
Okay, any questions of staff? Will we open the public hearing on this one as well? Open the public hearing. Anyone for or against, please state your name, your address, come forward. Thank you again. We're going to close the public hearing. No one's here. Discussion. It's the same as what we had last year, is what you just said. So,
Yeah, so compared to last year, policy-wise, I haven't proposed a lot of changes. I just wanted to point out, we did issue, I think it was close to 50 or 60% more entitlements this year. I think a lot of that had to correspond with Edison freeing up the wait list. I think we also have a much shorter wait list than the last time this was presented, so I don't know if that affects any of your stances on allowable growth, but those are the basic changes. And Edison is not issuing any new freshwater allocations at this time, just to clarify.
took them a long time to issue them to begin with. You would think after this many years, you'd be prepared for when we got rain and we had water. And so,
No comment.
yeah. Anyone want to make a motion? Or further discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend to City Council adoption of a resolution approving the 2023 growth policy, establishing overall priorities for growth and determining the amount and type of development to be permitted in the succeeding year in accordance with AMC Section 912.102.
Second.
I'll second.
Sandy? Call for vote.
Commissioner Putnam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Romero?
Aye.
Chairman Glass?
Yes.
Commissioner Heward?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Kennedy?
Yes.
Alternate Commissioner Root?
Yes.
Okay. Concludes it. Any commissioner business?
So how do we discuss, or how do
Say goodnight to Tony.
Let's say goodnight to Tony.
Good night, Tony. Meeting adjourned.